at 4:30. We're joined by Grayson Grundhafer, SicEm365 recruiting analyst with us. Grayson, okay, so we saw Matthew Meyer hooked up to visiting Angels. How much are you hearing, if anything at all, about football players getting able at Baylor being able to take advantage of this and or prospects who might now see a little bit of a silver lining?
Yeah, so as far as the Baylor players go, I haven't seen a whole lot. I know I saw Apuaika on Twitter was endorsing, playing a video game of some kind on a streaming service. So I saw that. I think there's going to be other creative ways that the players utilize this. And, we'll see what happens. We'll see how it goes. I think this is a learning process for everyone, and I'm sure the NCAA is going to be trying to learn a whole lot. And hopefully they do, because I do think that there are some flaws in the system that are definitely going to have to be corrected. So we'll see kind of how things take shape. But as far as recruits go, the main thing that I keep hearing kind of on the trail is basically some schools have something really concrete set up for the recruits coming in, as in they're ready to go. They've been ready to go with the NIL pitch for a long time, and some schools are using it on their recruiting trips and really making that a priority on their visit. Baylor is not one of those schools that I've heard from players that have really Baylor just hasn't really made it a focal point. And I do think that they don't really have to at this moment, but I do think as things progress, they're going to have to make, this much more of a focal point in their recruiting pitch, because a lot of kids really want to know, how is Baylor going to be able to, help kids get, whether it's endorsements or get their name out there, that name, image, and likeness. If they're able to do that, can Baylor help them achieve that? I don't know that Baylor has it totally figured out on the football side quite yet.
I hear that, and I saw what DJ Allen said about Southern Cal compared to Baylor, but when we were in that Zoom session earlier today, Paul, did you get that impression that they haven't made that clear to those who have?
I don't think that I think they said clearly that it's not something that they're saying to recruits right now. I think that's okay. That's not on their end. But I do think that they're trying to figure it out. Eventually you're going to have to, but I don't think anybody. Coaches don't know how this works yet.
Yeah, they talked about how the coaches kind of know the information though, but it's a work in progress. Okay.
Yeah, Grayson. So. How big a thing do you think this will be in this recruiting cycle, or will this be something that's maybe next recruiting cycle as people figure it out?
Yeah, I think you're on the right track there, Paul. I think the bigger impact is going to be 2023 because, while I think everyone's viewing this as kind of the open market, I do think there is still a learning curve here. And there are a lot of businesses and companies that are trying to figure out exactly what they can do, and same with players and same with recruits that are just trying to figure out, what can I do? How do I leverage this to go to a school? And I'm not sure that has been completely sold to players at every school that they're being recruited by. So I still think it's just a wait and see process. I think 2023 recruits are going to be at a much different advantage because they're going to get to see how this plays out, see the best strategy for it, and then apply it to their recruitment. I just don't think there's quite enough time for recruits to completely do a 180 just because of, name, image, and likeness abilities of some schools versus others. I just don't see them really changing their mind on the schools that maybe they've decided on or grown really close to, if that makes sense. So I do think 2023 will be much more impacted by this.
Grayson, how is Zach Pyron, Baylor quarterback commit, doing out at Elite 11?
Yeah, he's doing really well from everything I've seen. He's not currently in the top 11 that the Elite 11 puts out every day. Currently, and this is no surprise to me, but Cade Klubnik is number one in the rankings. I have him as the number one quarterback in the state. But interesting enough, Quinn Ewers and Connor Weigman are both from today's rankings. That's 1, 2, and 3. So 3 quarterbacks in the state of Texas, and Nick Evers is 5th on the day. Another quarterback in the state of Texas, which I found interesting. But Zach did really well in the Rail Challenge. I think the Pro Day was really an opportunity for him to take that step to the next level, and I think he achieved that. So I think the weekend is going well for him. I will say there were some complications with him getting there, so he got there late in the day on the first day that they were starting, so I think he was at a disadvantage from that point of view. But I think he's definitely showing people that are out there, recruiting analysts, and just probably other players that, Zach Pyron's for real. And Baylor's getting probably one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the entire country, which I don't think many people would have thought of that when Zach Pyron initially committed.
Grayson Grunhafer with us Fridays at 3:45, or when there's news that breaks like it did earlier this week with some of the commitments. So now the official visits are over for now and for probably quite some time. I think coaches are trying to maybe get a break, take a break, get on vacation and decompress. Big 12 Media Days comes up in a little less than 2 weeks. What's now? What's next on the table?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing they're trying to figure out is how do they want to fill this class? Right? I mean, you look at kind of the guys that they have committed, and they have a really solid class right now. But the areas of weakness currently are defensive back. That includes cornerback and safety. They only have one commit, and that's Devin Bobby, who really fits more into that star position. So he's not a true high safety, and obviously not a cornerback either. So they really need to address that. Obviously, wide receiver, they still have a spot open there as well. And probably a couple best available spots to get the class to 24. So right now, I think it's really about evaluation on their end. So you saw this week, for instance, Kamari Terrell out of Colleen Shoemaker. He got an offer. He's a 2022 prospect that no one really knows much about on the football side of things. But if you know anything about track and field, or if you follow that track and field recruiting, I mean, he's absolutely one of the best prospects in the country. He's got Texas Tech, Texas A&M, and LSU offers. So an elite track and field athlete who visited Baylor, got an on-campus evaluation. They offered him. So he's kind of the latest in guys who are kind of moving up that big board for the cornerback position. So he's one to watch, I would say. I'd also say Corey Gordon out of Putnam City West in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. He's a guy who's making a decision on July 4th, and I fully expect that Baylor is right in it for him. If I were to say a leader, I think Baylor is a clear leader in his recruitment, so could be some good news here in the next, I guess, couple days on that end. So they're filling up really quickly, and they're going to have to evaluate guys who, there's going to be guys that want to commit that simply don't have a spot anymore. I mean, Baylor's going to be potentially at 19 commits on July 4th if Corey Gordon does decide to be a Bear. And then you only have 5 spots left. And they really need a couple of those to be in the secondary, and then they'll probably have maybe 2 or 3 best available spots. So it's going to be a lot of meetings, a lot of intense conversations, and a lot of, honestly, disagreements. Because, if you're sitting in a room with coaches, every coach wants their guy. And so there's a lot of opinions. I just think it's going to be a heck of a process. And they've done so good building this class so far that I think they're going to sit in those rooms, and those meetings are going to be very direct, and guys are going to have opinions. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them finish because they have a lot of momentum right now, and they're in a great spot with a lot of their top targets.
It's nice that they can make decisions as much as those who just say, hey, I want to come there. So what's the latest on Rosenthal? That thing, it kind of seemed like it fell off the radar after a couple of days.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? And it's a very interesting situation. Obviously, he's a high-impact player. Make no mistake about it. I mean, he is an absolute playmaker, a guy who started for LSU last season in, I believe, 6 of their games. But he's dealt with a whole lot of suspensions and violations throughout his career. I think he's been suspended, I believe, 3 times. I know for sure it's been 2 times. But, yeah, a guy who's played a lot, 6'7", 327 pounds, would give Baylor an absolute sure thing at the tackle position as long as he can stay on the field. Has a great relationship with Baylor. So you think this is a slam dunk. But it took Baylor a while to kind of act on this. And I still don't even know if they've offered him yet. And as of right now, I would say that I don't think they have. And so that's made the situation much more complicated. I do think if they offer, they'll be in a good situation with him. And I do think that a decision's coming up in the next probably week, I would say. And based on everything I'm hearing, it seems like if Baylor offers, they'll probably get him. If they don't offer, it actually seems like Kentucky is the team that's really trending in the right direction right now for Dare Rosenthal.
Is right now the delay anything to do with compliance?
Not honestly that I know of. I think this is more of a situation of room. How many spots do we have? Can we for sure take this guy? And also a matter of, I do think it's a cultural thing. And so I don't believe it's compliance. I do believe it's more culture. I do think this is a Dave Aranda decision. I don't think this is going to be anyone else's decision. And so I think that's kind of where we're at right now. And so far, I haven't heard an offer has gone out. So I think that we kind of know where it's currently at, but I do think things could change. And like I said, I do think if Baylor put their hat in the ring, I think they would have a great shot at landing the former four-star prospect.
Grayson, thank you. Grayson Grundhafer, SicEm365.com recruiting analyst, busted it the last several weeks. Every day. There's like 5 or 6 stories up in the premium section about recruiting all of the time. All right.